Here we are again, ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, enlightened beings and fools. Now, the nature of philosophy is investigative. Philosophers like to investigate, and so there are some of you, at least one, whose past comment in very recent times that I'm going loopy because I'm saying the same things all the time and there's nothing new. And I'm like, well, if you think there's nothing new in my videos, then you must be in a very, very narrow circle of consciousness where anything that you hear that is outside of your state of consciousness, you don't have ears for. Now, we should all be aware how this happens, and the phrase has been coined that went straight over my head. When we don't have the receptors in our minds to receive certain information, then it just passes us by. And so, for instance, if I mention to you about this current book that I'm reading, um, Consciousness Explained. Well, I mean, of course, it never will be. It's a very haughty title, and doubtless entirely clickbait. But it's a philosopher's idea of his perspective on what he's given an enormous amount of consideration to. Now, for those of us who have never considered consciousness, when people start speaking about the nature of consciousness and the hard problem of consciousness and where does consciousness derive from, well, they don't have the ears for that. And so they would suggest that I'm not saying anything, or whoever is speaking about those things is not saying anything new. Well, it's a very small and narrow mind, isn't it, that's going to take that view. Because if you ask them, well, what do you know about consciousness? I'm assuming by that comment you must know everything there is to know about consciousness. And when it turns out that you don't in actual fact know anything about consciousness and you've never even given it a second thought, how is it that you have the audacity to speak of nothing new? So this is the nature of people. Now, I was listening to Alex O'Connor the other night, and of course, Alex O'Connor could get much more belligerent and exhibit his frustration if it wasn't going to cost him his livelihood and his reputation and everything he strives for and his credibility, because people are so protective, because you have to be seen in a certain light, in a certain narrow parameter of acceptability. Otherwise, people, they just, oh, I couldn't um, have myself related to that person. I couldn't invite that person on my channel, or I couldn't be on that person's channel, because people then will be thinking that I'm in allegiance with some of his thoughts and all these different sorts of things. And sometimes you get people which are teetering on the edge and they make disclaimers beforehand. I've invited you on because I like to give everybody the opportunity to speak their truth, and I don't have any allegiance to things either way. I'm just a middleman here, and so don't be shooting the messenger, don't be blaming me, and don't unsubscribe if you don't like, the things that this person's saying. It's not me, goodness me. Terrified they are, fucking terrified, all riddled with fear. Well, I, for one, people, some of you might respect the fact that I don't give a flying fuck about who considers me palatable, or whatever their considerations are in relation to me. I'm my own man, and what I can say with the most certain surety is that There will be nobody out there who is more prepared to speak exactly what they want to speak than me. And if anybody thinks that they are unequal to me or surpass me in the variety of things that they can just choose to speak about, well, I'd find it very fascinating to have a conversation with that person. Anyway, we deal with a lot of mediocrity, don't we? We deal with a lot of constraints, an enormous amount of constraints imposed by the platform that we're on, constraints imposed by social norms, constraints imposed by certain hierarchical systems. There's just constraints upon constraints upon constraints. And so another person I was listening to was Candace Owens, and Candace Owens, she just speaks her mind, whatever she wants to speak, whatever loosely her beliefs are or her hunches are, intuitions. She's gonna let all hell loose. And many people have a problem with that, and then they call her crazy and they call her despicable because she's casting aspersions and doing this, that, and the other. And she says, well, look, I could be a multimillionaire by now, like other people on the circuit who have been around less time than I have and have vastly weaker content, but they are acceptable because they're fitting to the norm, you see. And what happens in this world, people? So there was one of the viewers, and he said, "I just don't get it how you don't think Russell Brand, Alex Jones, and David Icke are like all shills, and they're all working for, blah blah blah." I'm like, look, now that's too simple. It's too simple, and you haven't given it enough thought. What actually happens in the world is, for instance, let's just take Jordan Peterson. Now, Jordan Peterson was the same level of intellect for many, many years, a big fish in a little pond, let's say, with his university lectures. He was just lecturing 20 kids at a time. And then someone thought it probably a good idea to record these lectures and put them online. And then more people can watch them, not just university students. And even that wasn't anything like significant to project him into his meteoric stardom. There needed to be controversy. There needed to be something that the media was speaking about. And there needed to be a witch hunt. And then there needed to be someone strong and brave to defend themselves against all the witch hunters. And, people like that. They have admiration for people that are prepared to fight their corner. Jordan Peterson was prepared to fight his corner at the risk of being dismissed from his position of being a professor at the university and being discredited as a cognitive therapist. And so he put his livelihood online, and it was a very big gamble, and it paid off. So as soon as big people, media moguls and manipulators, they see someone who is espousing something that they can use, well, of course, they will promote their books to the end of the earth. They will invite them and pay 50 grand, 100 grand for a couple of hours conversation with this person because it sells. And what else does it do? It indoctrinates the masses. And that's what it's all about. When anybody just rises to meteoric fame, it's because somebody is behind them. There's powers on this planet, people, that will promote people. Now, another classic example of this is Noah Yuval Harari, who is a Jew, and he is promoting in relation to AI that we must just accept it. We must just go with the flow. We must not fight it. It's kind of like he is the Borg, and I've done videos like this. Resistance is futile. We are the Borg. You will be assimilated, and that's exactly what he's saying. And I don't have any issue with that because it's just the way the world's going to go. But you've got people like David Icke who are chastising and demonizing Noah Yuval Harari because he's trying to drag the whole world into complete and utter control. We don't know where the world's going. And what we do know is through our history is that there's always been town criers, that there's always been people crying wolf. This is going to do this and that's going to do that, and it's all going to be terrible. And last night, for instance, I watched the epic movie Oppenheimer about the development of the atomic bomb. And, his concern after the development of it, and lots of other people's, was that now the world is fucked because everybody's going to be having these bombs, and, it's just a matter of time before one uses one, and then the other side uses it, and then the other side. And then before we know, this is the classic 1980s, propaganda of the Cold War. And then if we look into, well, are there actually any nuclear warheads on the planet? And there's lots of people that speculate that there, in actual fact, isn't. It's all been a ruse. It's just all been fear-mongering. Because to produce these weapons of this inevitable mass destruction is suicidal for the human being. And so the chances are there may not be any of these bombs. They may have all been dismantled. And there was a time when many of them were announced to be dismantled because there were thousands of them. And I've always wondered, well, why, if one of these bombs can wipe out a whole city, how many do you need if you want to wipe out Moscow, Peking, Beijing, New York, London, Bonn or Paris or what? You can go on. Look, you don't need thousands, do you? I think if there's only, like, let's say 194 countries on the planet, then you've got 194 epicenters, capitals of each country. So you need 200 nuclear warheads maximum. Oh, goodness me. And so, the world just appears to be more and more ridiculous, just absurd. We're living in a paradoxical absurdity, to be quite frank. So, philosophers have lots of thoughts, and every single morning I wake up, I've got thoughts, and I've got thoughts throughout the whole day. And if I don't upload these thoughts, then they won't go away. And I won't be enabled to continue on my Hansel and Gretel path of gathering up the pieces to this story that I'm telling. And so that's what I have to do, and now I am doing it again, much to some of your chagrin when you think that I'm banging on about religion again. Nobody believes it, or this, that, and the other. Lots of people believe it. Trust me, people, and it's not the religion per se. It's not God per se, or pretty boy Jesus per se. It's none of those things per se. What I'm investigating is the why. Why has it been forever that human beings have considered it necessary, being compelled to seek out and invent something higher and more enduring than themselves? And so I just wrote a few things down before I went online, and I wrote down this. Why is there a need for something more secure? Something more secure than the human being. Why do we have that need? Why can't we just accept that we live and die? Why do we need to invent a place where we're going to continue? What is it about our finite reality that we just don't want to accept? Because we cannot deal with our finite nature in a seemingly vast, never-ending cosmos. Now, for those of us that are thinkers and feelers, you intuit the world. Well, I look at the world and I have the greatest of reverence for this experience. It's always shown me an incredible time, and I've not always been jumping with joy. I've suffered deep deep traumas in my life, but my spirit, my disposition, my personalities have always considered those to have been very very useful on my journey, and of course they are. Now, I look at this cosmos and I'm like, well, I don't really want to leave here because, of course, you've got the insecurity of where you're going to go. But I'm like, well, I want to see the end of the movie. Don't you? We can listen to people who speak about, do you want to live forever? And then some people go, oh, yeah, I'm going to live forever. I will do it. But there's so many problems with everything. There's pros and cons, of course. But if we didn't get sick and if we lived a perfect human existence and we never got a mind virus, we just kept continuing through all the different varieties of epochs and world dramas and traumas and ice ages and volcanic eruptions and meteorite implosions and all these different sorts of things. If we could live through that, then it would be an incredible, fantastic thing, wouldn't it? Just to be privy to experiencing those things. And this is why I'm always so indifferent about whatever the world is going to manifest. I'm like, well, it's life experience. And if we look around the world, some people are having a blissful, undeserved life experience when others are having an absolute horrific life experience. And we can just think about the wars going on in the world with all that stuff which pertains to those particular times in humanity's progression or digression, whatever you want to call it as. And so it's yin and yang, people. And I would never say, oh, the last thing on the earth I want is for Britain to be at war. And I'm like, well, look, if Britain's at war, it's fucking its turn. That's what I would say. Because I would say, well, how many wars has Britain took to other countries? How many wars has America took? America's took 200 wars around the world to many, many countries, probably about 100 countries. It's had fingers in pies ever since the inception of that nation. And if there was a civil war, if there was an invasion, well, it's their turn. And if we had one, it's our turn. Well, why would it not be? Why would we consider ourselves too big, too important? No, we're not. Things change and things can happen. And so I'll just go, okay, now we have a war. We've had a great period, now we've got a not so great period. Let's see what happens. Anyway, people, a few more things. The whole thing about religion, I've always been very, very interested in, what this stuff is about and why the humanities is considered necessary, and why the human being, if not even considered it necessary, finds it a default setting. That we have to look for something beyond our finite selves because we just simply can't deal with ourselves being finite. We just don't want to accept the finality of it. And I guess, it's like what I say. Everybody wants to see the end of the movie. And if the movie ends and everybody then, gets evaporated or vaporized or whatever, then I'm pretty sure that not too many people would have a problem with that. Not too many people would want to say, well, I don't want to be evaporated. I want to continue to see what's after the movie. Well, there would be an enormous amount of insecurity again. because it could be anything. It could be literal hell. It could be the abyss forever and ever. It could be all different sorts of stuff. People like comfort in numbers. And so it's like when a movie finishes, the screen goes off and everybody leaves the cinema. Everybody feels comfortable about that. But if there's any person that gets an emergency call and has to leave the movie halfway through, it's kind of like there's unfinished business. And they'll say to themselves, oh, well, I'll have to go back and watch it another day because I feel uncooked now. So, the whole thing about religion, um, if it isn't an innate, inexplicable thing, which is designed by the cosmos, then it has to be self hypnosis. It has to be something that we've conjured up and created ourselves out of our own insecurity. It makes perfect sense. And when you look back at the history, mythology, and all the stories that we've always told each other, you can see that we've always done that. We've always created gods, haven't we? And lots of them have been wicked and lots of them have been benevolent. But there's nothing ever which has been outside of the attributes of a human being. And most certainly not outside of the imagination. Which is an attribute of the human being. And so, okay, if you have invisible gods and gods in other dimensions and all this stuff, if we can think about it, if we can imagine it, then that is an attribute of the human being. It's a part of what we are. And so, of course, well, we're just going to be projecting what we are. And because we can think of so many varying things, then that's what we do. And that's what gives colour and nuance to the human existence. So, self hypnosis, it's a plea for a surety. Um, a surety that we are never going to die, the surety that we're never going to be alone, the surety that it's not going to end. We just want to continue being conscious, basically. Consciousness has this thing where it just wants to continue. Is that pure consciousness or is that the ego? I think it's got a great deal to do with the ego feeling insecure and finite, whereas pure consciousness, it doesn't feel and think anything per se. It just is, isn't it? And it's probably been around forever. So it's not an issue of consciousness, it's an issue of the ego, the operating system of the human being. So, a projection of insecurity. Then I ask the question, well, which variety of love makes this possible? If we go by the 7 varieties of love coined by the Greeks, then I think it's the agape, which is kind of like the love of God and, the supernatural, those sort of things. I'll look at the 7 terminologies of love before I end this video, just to be clear. But we has a question. Well, what variety of love? When people write "love Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," and then you've got the same with Allah, and then you've got people saying that they're loving from the heart, and they impose that. Well, what do? They presuppose that they have the attributes of the fiction of Jesus, whereby Jesus was promoting love thy neighbor, and it seemed that was the whole premise of and so people want to think that they can do that, and people have told me in the comments, I love my neighbor as much as I love myself, or more than I love myself. And so what are they doing? They're making an instant martyr of themselves by putting them second, at least equal, but sometimes very often second, because being equal, well, that even sounds too selfish and it doesn't sound too Jesus. I mean, after all, Jesus died for us, didn't he? Jesus was sacrificed. God sacrificed his only son. God sacrificed himself. God, oh goodness me, don't get me started on that stuff again. The paradox of it all. But that's the whole thing of Christianity. It's the sacrifice, that we sacrifice our human needs, our selfishness for others, and we're compassionate and We exhibit pity and empathy and these humanisms which are supposed to make us better human beings, because people who are entirely selfish and self-serving, well, I mean, that's very Darwinism. But so many people would have an issue with that, when the fact of it is that we are completely self-serving, and the only thing that would create a ruse in relation to this is our ego, which we want to project onto other people, how benevolent we are and how we love our neighbors more than ourselves, and how we are loving everybody, from the heart. And, it's kind of like, well, you're picking, a few bits from here and there, and then you imbuing yourself with them. And well, the Bible told you that you're all fallen and you're all disgusting, vile creatures. And Jesus would even tell you that if you want to be saved, well, you've got to die first, and you're going to get saved by believing in Him and following and trying to utilize some of his attributes, which, by the way, are just the most purest and beautiful of attributes of the human being, all collectivized into one being, which is completely impossible. But if you look at humanity, well, the better part of humanity. Well, it doesn't work like that. You can't just have the good, you need the bad. And so it's a fiction, isn't it? It's a fantasy. So that story is entirely fantastical, of being all love and being all beautiful and compassionate. And goodness me, we'll never get anything done, because there's going to come a time when we're going to say to ourselves, well, we have to make a sacrifice here with these people if we're going to make progress for those people. And so let's just say, for instance, America as a continent, North America, with the indigenous peoples, which never laid a railway line, and then they never built a house of any significance, and this, that, and the other. They're pretty well nomadic. And they lived in sticks and fucking animal skins, and so they could be around for a billion years, and they would never leave a mark on that land. But then, of course, you've got the white folk coming in, and they're just carving up the whole world, and they're blasting it and ripping it to pieces and felling all the forests, and goodness me, they're a great deal of destruction. And then when we can look at that, we'll go, well, that's pure evil. Well, yeah, it is and it isn't. Depends which way you want to look at it. If the Indians, the indigenous Indians of North America, they doubtless they did look at it like that. But the white men, they consider it progress for more of those sort of people, more intelligent people, not savages, because the world has to progress. And so you've got the pros and cons of everything, haven't you, all the time? And by the time we've discovered and the ins and outs of everything, we really do have to concede, if we are really intelligent beings, that right and wrong are just concepts which derive out of an individuated state of consciousness, which has been born into it biases and varying ideas that it's got an adherence to, and the indoctrination and the hypnosis and the propaganda and all these sort of things. And all the white people coming in, blowing up the mountains and taking gold and destroying the landscape and the flora and the fauna, they would justify it by, well, this money is going to make our nation rich, and we will be able to build housing and roads and develop medicine and all these different sorts of things. Yeah, so something has to die for something else's existence. So, love. Now, when people speak about Jesus, loving Jesus, well, what are they actually doing? They are loving an idea. Let's get things absolutely plain. They are loving an idea, because there is no proof at all, never has been, that Jesus is out there somewhere living, loving us, and is going to come back, or we're going to go to him. All fantasy, no different to Superman or Batman. And so when people proclaim that they love Jesus or God or Allah, well, they are creating their own fiction, their own fantasy, their own propaganda, their own deception, their own idealism. That's what they're doing. And when they do that, they are then creating the relevant drugs within their brain and body. And these drugs, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, oxytocin, these are the preferable drugs that the body creates, as opposed to cortisol, which is the fear or hormone. And I suppose a weaker variety is anxiety, and inattention, and what variety of chemical causes these sort of things. The stiffness in the body, what sort of chemical creates that, whereby we're just not free and fluid. So, people, in my book, I touch on many of these things, and I ask, is God a chemical? Because when I've taken chemicals, i.e., the chemicals that our body creates naturally, like DMT, dopamine, and serotonin, when you take drugs which consist of those chemicals and they give you an infusion of those chemicals, then you have a greater feeling of what those chemicals give us under normal circumstances in the body. So when we're feeling like we're in love and we've got oxytocin and serotonin flowing around our brains, well, it's a wonderful thing. But we can get this from substances. And I've had both. I've had this so-called love of a person, and it's felt, beautiful at the time. And then I've had, a very similar replication of the way I felt, completely free and beautiful, and loved by the cosmos and all these different sort of things. Well, you can get that by entheogens, people. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, if I got that via an entheogen, then it must be a chemical. And it's not actually a thing being bestowed upon me by a god, or, by my heart or anything. No, it's chemicals. Where are the chemicals produced? Well, lots of places, but primarily in the brain. And we can pretty well narrow down lots of these chemicals, and we can see what they do. And so then we can ask the question, well, is God a chemical? Well, I mean, the chemical will certainly give you some sort of godlike feelings. And there are helmets that you can actually put on which stimulate the mind in a certain way, which will give you a godlike experience. And so, if you can replicate it, then isn't it reasonable to assume that we are creating it? And if we are creating it, then we are God. And Jesus was saying all along, whatever I can do, you can do more. Why? Because he was just a human being, the same as you. Only he made more realizations. He wasn't the Son of God any more than you. The rest of it is just fantasy, but you will never manage to sever. You'll never manage to create an operation on someone's mind when it's been so indelibly embedded with propaganda and their own biases and fears and desires and all the rest of it. The human desire and self-hypnosis is a very powerful thing, and logic and reason is nothing compared to it. You see, a person's fear and preferences and fantasy and self-created delusion is like a mountain, whereas a person's logic is like a molehill, because these people who have poisoned their minds with their fantasy, there are no more synapses available to think in a logical and rational way. All the synapses have either been burnt out or they're occupied by the fantasy. You see, and that's why in these religions, there needs to be a constant reiteration And I was listening to an ex-Christian last night speaking about the despicable nature of Christianity and the propaganda and the mind poison and the brainwashing and all this, and saying how vile it actually is. Yes, it's all about that. And all through the Old Testament, you will obey me, I will do this and I will do that, I am the one God, I am the most powerful God. Don't be bowing down to other gods. Well, why say don't bow down to other gods if there was no other God? And why be jealous if there was no other God to be jealous of? Paradox after paradox, contradiction after contradiction. People's minds are too weak to be able to think about that. Why? It's because what they need and what they desire, which is a surety and security. They need to think that they are going on forever because they just can't comprehend that their whole life is coming to an end. Just like when the projector is turned off at the end of the movie, it's over, it's finished, it's final. People can't stand that, so therefore they create these fantasies. Now, I was speaking to a woman, and some of you will watch the video. And I keep mentioning this because it was very, very profound. It was very poignant. That before we started recording, we exchanged some pleasantries, and then she just burst out crying. And she expressed that she just finds this life so incomprehensible. And so she had an implosion. And I suggested to her, well, isn't this why you just profess and proclaim and you're so recalcitrant and so falsely positive that you've got this love in your heart, and the love is everything, and the cosmos is everything, and it's all love, and I love you, and and all this business, and it's never ending. Well, doesn't that just sound like a fantasy being projected out of insecurity? That's a classic example. Now, it's significant to notice that this woman hasn't been on the channel. Are you still there, dear? Are you still there? You can still come back, you can still, well, no, don't put your hearts down. Don't put those silly little red hearts down. If you can't put anything intelligent down, then yeah, I get it. That's why you're not commenting anymore. This channel is about psychology, philosophy, metaphysics, ontology. It's about thinking. It's about searching. It's about discovering. It's about experimentation. It's not just about projecting our desired fantasy onto the fucking cosmos. No. That's why I'm always at war with anybody that comes onto this channel and starts spouting out that nonsense. I just have to run you through. I have to run you through. I have to kill this fantasy and this ignorance, because we don't engage in that as philosophers or psychoanalysts or metaphysicians or whatever you want to call it. We've got questions and we're looking for answers. Whereas these lovey-dovey Jesus worshipping fools, no, they've not got no questions, because questions are very, very dangerous. Now, let me start. Goodness me, I've done 40 minutes already, and I've only got through the preamble. I put into Google, is religion belief? Is religion belief, faith? Religion belief, it should be, is religious belief, faith, a crutch? Look how I spelled everything wrong. I put it, religion, belief, faith, a crutch for weak-minded. Okay, then Google has to correct me, and it doesn't even do that in actual fact. It can't even correct me. So anyway, is religious belief or faith a crutch for the weak-minded? Now, we've all heard that now. You all tell us that it's a common thing. Now, the idea that religion, belief, or faith is a crutch for the weak minded is a common criticism, suggesting people use it for comfort to avoid thinking. Now, this is what I've been saying forever. And, it's a very, very reasonable suggestion. And I would think there's a great deal of truth in it. And the people I've spoken to, I can see clearly that they are not given to thinking. And so, therefore, with many people, it is a fact. They don't want to think, they can't think. And so, well, they just swallow the propaganda because it's fluffy. But believers counter that it provides meaning, community, and moral guidance. Well, if you can't find meaning and community and moral guidance by just the social interaction and finding something that you enjoy in life outside of a fantasy created in your own fucking minds, well, it's a very sad indictment on you as a person, isn't it? Listen to it again. But believers counter that argument and say that it provides meaning, community, and moral guidance, just as any support system helps people cope with life's changes or helps them cope. Well, why can't you just use your mind to help you cope? That's what we do, isn't it, in the Western world? With some arguing that seeking help, like faith, is intelligent, not weak, while others see it as an obstacle to critical thought or a shield for ignorance, making it a complex debate about human needs, intellectual reliance, and personal experience. Now, of course, look, Google is always going to go, some people think this and some people think that. Well, what Google doesn't do, because it's written by leftist, liberalist fucking turds, and it absolutely cannot be trusted, it should be saying the people that do not think, the people that cannot think, the stupid people, the ignorant people, the lazy people, they have a propensity towards religion because, well, it ticks all the boxes for them and they can just fucking drone on through their meaningless fucking life, thinking that they've actually got meaning, purpose, and that they are loved and they're a big deal because their fantasy religion tells them that. So isn't it just marketing? It just sounds like marketing to me, people. And then, on the other hand, people consider it an obstacle to critical thought. Well, of course it's an obstacle because these people just do not think critically. And so it says it all, doesn't it? It says it all. Now, arguments for the crutch view criticism. Comfort and avoidance. Religion offers easy answers and comfort from life's hardships, preventing people from facing difficult realities or thinking critically. Oh, it's God's will. Or Jesus is going to save me. Well, there you go. Yeah, problem solved. Intellectual stunting. It can discourage rational inquiry and praise blind belief, sometimes vilifying independent thought, says critics. Well, vilifying independent thought. Desire for control. Some atheists suggest people turn to religion to avoid taking responsibility for their own lives, wanting a divine authority instead. Now, control, a desire for control. Some atheists suggest people turn to religion to avoid taking responsibility for their own lives, wanting a divine authority instead. Well, I mean, hang on, isn't that paradoxical? If religion is a desire for control, some atheists suggest people turn to religion to avoid taking responsibility for their own lives. Oh yeah, there you go. Oh goodness me, sometimes it takes a fucking penny a while to drop. wanting a divine authority instead, wanting them just to just want a few lines in the book to guide them what they should do and shouldn't do, because thinking about it themselves is just far too fucking complex. Argument against the crutch: meeting universal needs. Faith addresses fundamental human needs like purpose, hope, and comfort, which even intelligent people experience, just like needing food for hunger. Yes. Well, I mean, why turn to faith for your basic needs? Your basic needs, even in the Old Testament, it says that God's created the heaven and the earth to provide for all of our needs. And so, well, see, he shot himself in the fucking foot initially by saying that. And so, strength and support. For many, faith provides strength, community, and values like charity, kindness, acting as a vital support system, not a weakness. Well, again, why do we need faith? To have strength and community and values. Why do we need God to tell us or to point us or to aid us in charity acts or being kind? Why do we need the fiction of a Bible telling us to do that? Well, stupid people obviously need that. How many Christians have we heard that have said, well, if we don't have the Bible, then how do we know what to do and what's right and wrong? Well, fuck me. I've heard grown men, 40 and 50 years old, say that. I'm like, well, for fuck's sake. Thank goodness for fucking chickens and factories. Just fucking set them all at labour under the fucking yoke, extract their stupid fucking life force out of them. Intellectual recognition. Believers might see relying on God as an intelligent acknowledgement of human limitations, not intellectual deficiency. Relying on God. But how do you rely on God? When God doesn't make any manifestations at all, which are inferred or supported by those silly scriptures. God is never around. God doesn't do anything. God doesn't prevent hurricanes or volcanic eruptions or plagues or cancer. He doesn't prevent nothing. And so why would you want to take strength from something that has never provably given anything or prevented any suffering at all? Why would you want to invest your life force, your energy in a fantasy, a hope, and a prayer? It doesn't make sense, and it most certainly is an intellectual deficiency. But these idiots will proclaim it's not an intellectual deficiency. Well, it's fucking dumb, isn't it? It's fucking dumb and dumber. They can kid themselves all fucking day long. That they are the smartest guy in the room. Nuanced perspectives depends on usage. Religion becomes a crutch when blind obedience replaces study or it's used to justify intolerance, but not when it fosters good, say some. Crutches aren't always bad. Using support like a crutch for a broken leg is practical, not inherently weak. Faith can be a practical tool for life's changes. Well, if you don't want to use your mind, if you don't want to accept that the world, has a certain propensity for chaos, um, if you don't want to accept that you are going to suffer and you are going to die, then you can have this crutch, and the crutch will be hope. The crutch that you're leaning on is hope, and you're praying to God and Jesus that you don't befall any of these, things that are created by the devil and are evil. No, all things were created by God, in actual fact. If you're gonna fucking buy into it, you have to accept it all, not just use your fucking cherry picking. God created everything. God fucked you up. God sent you out into the world to suffer and then blamed it on the fucking devil. What a fucking joke. What a joke. It's like if you poison your whole family and you go, wasn't me, it was the poison. These fools, these fucking fools. Ah, goodness me. Um, Right then, what have I got over here? How is it possible to love an idea such as Jesus Christ? And I'm asking from a philosophical perspective. It is possible to love an idea such as Jesus Christ from a philosophical perspective through several avenues, primarily centered on the concept of a personification of virtues, the embodiment of a moral ideal, and the narrative framework of his life and teachings. Well, why can't we just do that by looking at the best of human beings? I mean, we've all known people with certain attributes. No one person has ever appeared to have all the positive attributes, but we can take kindness from one person, compassion from another, honesty and lack of deception from another, and we can cherry pick, can't we? And then we can observe these traits in other people, and we can make our own minds up which ones we want to take on board and which ones we want to dismiss. Well, that isn't that us becoming God. We are choosing. And then we can realize, well, we have these negative feelings and thoughts within us. So isn't that the devil? Well, we're all part of devil and we're part of God. And so therefore we have the choice then, and we can balance which one we want to be. Why do we need Jesus as our savior? Well, if you don't want to think about these things too much, well, Jesus is your boy. Philosophically, loving an idea can be understood through the nature of both love and ideas and how they can interact with human experience. Well, I'm constantly asking, well, what is this love? You really should be defining what this love is, because that love concept is a massive concept. And for people just to say that, then it doesn't get us anywhere, does it? Because we really do need to know what the ingredients are. It's a bit like if your grandma is baking you a cake, you love the cake and you want to learn how to produce it, and she doesn't give you the ingredient. Well, I mean, have you just got to have some sort of faith that the Lord is going to provide you with that knowledge, or are you going to look in a fucking cookbook? Use your own loaf. One perspective considers love not solely as an emotion directed towards a physical being, but as a deep appreciation, commitment, and alignment with something considered valuable or meaningful. Ideas, in this sense, can hold profound value for individuals. They can represent core beliefs, aspirations, moral principles, or a framework for understanding the world. Now, it says it here, doesn't it? It says that one perspective considers love not solely as an emotion directed towards a physical being, but as a deep appreciation, commitment, and alignment with something considered valuable or meaningful. Ideas, in this sense, can hold profound value for individuals. So, what are we doing when we believe in God and we worship Jesus? We are worshipping an idea. Look, it says it there. Ideas, in this sense, can hold profound value for individuals. Now, can you hold anything tangible in relation to the concept of God or Jesus, other than the Bible, other than words written by men who have been proven to be liars, and the whole book can be dismantled in some shape or form because the authors aren't who they were reputed to have been, and this is changed from Hebrew into Greek, and from Greek into English, and from varying text into the King John's version, King James version, blah 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 blah. Ideas, people. So you love an idea, okay? Well, I love the idea that I'm gonna be living to 150 years old. I'm in love with that idea, and I can fantasize that I'm going to be living to be 150 years old until the day I die. And then, I will still be in denial, when I'm 98, and, I've been told by the doctors that I've got a day to live. Well, I'm still going to think, well, I'm going to pull through because I've got faith and belief in what I projected, my fantasy. Fantasy, people, you see how comforting it is. See how comfort it is. And so this is the thing, isn't it? It's comfort. It's the eradication of the insecurity that human beings feel so profoundly. They just can't stand that insecurity that they are going to be leaving this world with their loved ones behind. Well, what's my dog gonna do? What are my cats gonna do? What's my family gonna do without me? Don't worry. They'll be fine without you. It's happened trillions and gazillions and bazillions of times before, and I'm sure they'll fucking cope this time when you're gone. So don't worry about that. Don't impose your significance onto the fucking world, for goodness sakes. It's like a grain of sand imposing its significance on the beach. The act of loving an idea could therefore be interpreted as a strong identification with that idea's principle, a passionate pursuit of its goals, or a deep reverence for the truth or meaning it embodies. It can involve intellectual engagement, emotional resonance, and a commitment to living in accordance with the ideas. Now, you see what gets me again is the bit here where it speaks about truth. A passionate pursuit of its goals, or a deep reverence for the truth or meaning it embodies. Take truth out, there is no truth. Stop lying, stop deluding people. What nonsense are you talking about? Truth, that Jesus loves you, God loves you, and there's a heaven and there's a hell. And look, goodness me, just stop it already. Just stop it. But they won't stop, you see. They won't stop because there's too many fools that need that shit. They need to be told that there's a truth there. You can't tell these fools that they're all delusional. No, because you've got no control over them then. You can't direct them. You can't herd them. You can't farm them. They need to be told lies. And what is the lie? The lie comes in the 5-letter word, truth. You've got to tell them the lie of truth, people. That's what you got to do to keep them motivated and to keep them showing up at their factories to pack my fucking chickens. Another philosophical angle is to view an idea as a form of intellectual or spiritual object that can inspire devotion. Okay, so an intellectual or spiritual object that can inspire devotion. Just as one might love a work of art for the ideas it expresses, or a philosophical concept for its elegance and truth. An abstract idea can become a focal point of one's inner life and commitments. Yes, an abstract idea. So this is philosophy. This is the philosophical perspective. And so they're thinking about lots of different variants of why, we would do this. Why we would project such notions and concepts of love and devotion onto a figment of our imagination, an idea. Well, ideas serve us. The idea that we can work for 40 years and then we can retire. The idea that we're going to meet this beautiful partner and we're going to have a family together and we're going to rear our children and everything's going to be wonderful. Well, fuck me. If we didn't have these ideas, these pies in the sky, then we'd never launch upon anything, would we? If we're so skeptical about life. But people, this is what life does to you. You see, naivety will set you on all these journeys. The fool, we've seen the journey of the fool with his knapsack over his shoulder. Well, the fool in these tarot cards isn't in actual fact the fool, because the fool goes off experiencing all these things and then becomes wise in the end. So it's a paradox where the fool isn't really the fool. The fool is the wise person. But, we're all got to start somewhere. Furthermore, ideas can be deeply intertwined with human identity and purpose. When an idea provides a framework for understanding oneself, one's place in the world, or the meaning of life, a deep connection akin to love can develop. Akin to love, a deep connection, akin. So, it's something like love. We don't know what love is, but yeah, we've heard of the word, and kind of like it's a broad concept. And so, well, what are we going to do? We can only have fucking language. This connection is fueled by the sense of belonging, clarity, and direction for the idea offers. Now, okay, the thing of belonging to eternity, I suppose that's what religious people are looking to. They're not looking for community because they don't pray to community. They don't worship community. They don't profess to love community. They love Jesus or God, and they love eternity, and they love the notion that they are going to be with Jesus or God forever. And so it is even said in the Bible, love not the world is evil, love God. Don't have anything to do with the world. I mean, that's what the Old Testament was always banging on about. But then Jesus had another, variation to that. And he was saying that the kingdom of God is within you and out of you. And so, therefore, then, the kingdom of God is, in actual fact, on the world. And it's not such a living hell as the Old Testament would have it. And what Jesus was actually saying is, look, you are all. You are the potential. You're the one that decides whether you are living in hell or heaven. You are the one that decides that you are love or hate. You're the one that has the potential to juggle with all of these concepts and potentials of the human being. And so when Jesus said, truly I say unto you, that you can do more than I can do, well, you can do more than he could do if you found the tools, if you worked on the tools, if you opened up your consciousness and removed the scales from your eyes and received the tools. What are the tools? The tools is whatever your consciousness is endowed within you. And now the tools are all different, of course, and so you're all going to have different levels of what artisan you're ever going to be. The people with less tools and with dim consciousnesses, well, they're not going to be too much of a renowned artisan, are they? In summary, from a philosophical standpoint, the possibility of loving an idea lies in the understanding that love can extend beyond interpersonal relationships to encompass a deep appreciation, commitment, and identification with concepts that hold significant value, meaning, or provide a framework for life. Again, concepts, identification with concepts, the concept of Jesus, the concept of God, the concept of love, the concept of unconditional love, the concept of living with God or Jesus for eternity, the concept of never dying, the concept of infinity as far as you're concerned. Yes, and so what is these things? What are these things? Figments of your imagination, people. Everything is you. It doesn't matter what you look at, what you consider, what you investigate. Every single thing is you. Why? Because it comes out of your consciousness. And as far as we are concerned as individuals, there is nothing else except our consciousness, because everything is in our consciousness. The cosmos as we know it, as broad and as narrow as we perceive it to be, is within our consciousness. Now, Oppenheimer had a vastly expansive consciousness where he could even envision things like black holes. I think he was the first person to start speaking and hypothesizing about when a star goes supernova, then the gravity is so powerful that it even absorbs the light, and it just becomes this this void, this forever blackness. And yeah, people were astounded by what he was saying. And when he was he saying this? He was saying this in in the 1940s. And then you got people like Stephen Hawkins writing extensively on it, and people putting more and more of the pieces together. But some people's consciousness is actually, it really does envelop many facets of the cosmos. And that's why I'm always saying, well, my consciousness is the cosmos. Because although I can't create the math which depicts certain phenomenon, I can create ideas which depict certain phenomenon. And so Einstein had this idea of flying on a rocket at the speed of light. Well, that was just an idea. And that's why he always said that, his work consists of 98% inspiration and only 2% perspiration. So the 2% perspiration was the math, the thinking that he would have to do to put his ideas down onto paper so other people could reckon with them. So, there you have it, people. Goodness me. I feel a relief. I've done it. It took me an hour and 5 minutes. I've said what I needed to say today. But tomorrow, there'll be other things. And so, in a nutshell, what am I saying here? What I'm saying is, look, people, I will vociferously and belligerently dismantle your states of mind, because I want to instill in your fake belief systems little cracks, little fissures, because once your fakeism has been discerned to have a little fissure in it, and even if you don't accept it consciously, you would have heard it, and your unconscious would be running through the ramifications of this. And in time, your unconscious would be presenting to your conscious denial certain realities and certain rational application. And that's the death of ignorance. That's the beginning, that's the kernel of the death of ignorance. So it doesn't mean that you won't have love and you won't have Jesus and you won't have all those other things that you fantasize about. You still have the fantasy, but it will bring about the realization that it is in actual fact your fantasy. It's not a reality, because there isn't in actual fact any reality to anything fundamentally. When you look at everything falls through our fingers. There is in actual fact no reality as we consider it to be. And religion is just another example of that. But if you go through your lives and you deny all other facets of reason and rational thinking, then you're not going to get very far. And you're always going to appear to be stupid and ignorant to intelligent people. And so if you could ever reconsider that love actually doesn't emanate from the heart, if you could ever get your heads around that, and then you can say to yourself, well, I mean, I've got this idea of love, and that idea obviously is creating some sort of chemical reaction in my brain, because then those chemicals are released into my body and I actually feel good. And I have kidded myself into producing these chemicals, which in actual fact are now, producing this desired effect in my body. Yes, it's called hypnosis, people. You can do it. And so this is why the Muslims have to bow down and pray to Allah 5 times every single day for the rest of their lives, never ever missing a session, because it's a constant reiteration of their own hypnosis and propaganda. And what anyone's doing when they're telling people that they love from the heart and they love everybody, all they're doing is they're absorbing some of the concepts and words and sayings of Jesus, and they are embodying them, and then they are they embody them in their brains first and foremost, in their minds as concepts. And then when they concentrate on them and believe them, and give them more and more energy, then the brain will create the relevant fucking criteria, which is expected, which is the chemicals, which then send the chemicals to the body. Now, if you start thinking that you're going to die, and you're going to die of, let's just imagine a hypochondriac, everything is going to kill them. Even if they've got a pain in their knee, well, it could be cancer, it could be fucking, something, it could be any number of fucking things, it could be a blood clot, and it's going to go to my heart, and it kills me. And so what are they doing? They're creating their own reality. And people can kill themselves by their own thoughts, and we've seen evidence of this in many instances when people just give up, or if people are, they believe so vehemently that they are under the power of voodoo or juju or black magic or something like this, then their bodies will give up. Because their brains have convinced the body to give up. They've convinced the body that it's ill or it's dying. And so the power of the mind, people. So the mind is the epicenter. The mind is all. Consciousness, that is what is king. That is what is God. God consciousness. And so that's what I have derived throughout my investigation for all these years. And for those of you, for goodness sakes, can ever finish my book, can you finish the fucking book? It's 20 hours. It takes 20 hours to read. And, so if you do 1 hour a day, you don't even have to do 1 hour a day, to read the book in a month. You could read the book in a month, and then you could read it again a couple of months after that, and you can realize how minuscule your memory is, and how bereft your rational application was when you don't remember, or you haven't had the penny dropped of any of the concepts that I've been hoping that you would perceive. There's so much to perceive, people, at the end of the day. And so that book, I maintain that it is the world's first spiritual Bible. And it's not a haughty proclamation of an individual, because that book consists of the wisdom of many, many very renowned intellectuals. And so, what are we all doing? We're all riding on the shoulders of geniuses, people. Nothing new per se under the sun, but there's just a different way in which we can bake the cake.